Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a seriously fascinating frontier in healthcare. We're going to unpack how modern neuroscience is finally catching up with the ancient, time-tested systems of Ayurvedic medicine to help optimize our brain health.
Look around, and you'll see chronic conditions like Parkinson's and dementia are just surging right now across the globe. And honestly, our healthcare system is under immense strain. Now, conventional medicine is absolutely incredible at acute care. But for chronic, progressive diseases, well, patients need more. So it brings us to a huge question. Can ancient botanical therapies actually offer evidence-informed support for our aging brains? Let's dig into the science.
In the integrated medicine journey, the patient sits right at the center of the entire process. You see, integrative medicine isn't about rejecting modern science. Actually, it's about expanding our toolkit. Ayurveda acts as a highly complementary, evidence-informed partner here. We're basically combining the diagnostic precision of modern neurology with the holistic, systems-based approach of traditional practices. Why? So we can target multiple physiological networks in the body at the exact same time.
Picture this, natural herbal preparations working literally side by side with modern pharmaceutical pills. That is the true core of integrative neurology. Because let's face it, chronic brain diseases rarely involve just one isolated defect. They involve a complex mix of inflammation, oxidative stress, immune dysregulation, and vascular issues, all interacting over years and years. By combining these different modalities, we can tackle these interconnected mechanisms far more comprehensively than we ever could with just a single pill.
Here is our roadmap for today. 1. The integrative neurology approach. 2. Herbs for cognitive enhancement. 3. Herbs for motor support. 4. The neuroprotectors. And 5. Safe clinical integration.
Section 1. The Integrative Neurology Approach.
So it really all comes down to translation. You know, what classical Ayurvedic texts called Medhya Rasayana, which basically translates to mind rejuvenation, modern science is now actively measuring using functional MRIs, and we call it neuroplasticity and cholinergic modulation. Ayurveda historically utilized this specific category to enhance cognition and delay cognitive aging. Fast forward to today, and molecular biology allows us to see exactly how these ancient formulas actually promote the growth of new neural connections. It's wild. It's essentially two entirely different vocabularies describing the exact same physiological magic.
Section 2. Herbs for cognitive enhancement.
When we look at boosting cognition, three specific botanicals really stand out from the pack. First up is Brahmi, or Bacopa monnieri, which is extensively studied right now for improving memory and attention, making it a massive target for ADHD and dementia research. Then there's Centella asiatica, also known as Gatucola, heavily researched for stimulating neuroplasticity, especially when we're talking about post-stroke rehabilitation. And finally, Shunk pushpi, which is traditionally utilized to help calm anxiety while acting as a protector for memory.
To really grasp Brahmi's power, you've got to understand cholinergic modulation. In plain English, that essentially means it helps optimize the chemical messengers your brain uses to learn and remember things. By preventing the breakdown of a chemical called acetylcholine, Brahmi acts almost like a biological upgrade for your brain's internal Wi-Fi. It's fundamentally supporting your brain's structural capacity to process and store that new name you just learned, or that new skill you've been practicing all week.
Section 3. Herbs for motor support.
Moving on to motor support, Mucuna pruriens and ashwagandha have attracted a ton of scientific attention recently for their adjunctive applications in Parkinson's disease and motor control. It's fascinating because modern research is validating precisely why these specific botanicals were historically selected to manage complex movement disorders, conditions which the ancient texts classified as Campavata.
Think of Mucuna pruriens almost like a natural delivery system. Its seeds naturally contain levodopa, which makes it a really compelling subject in the management of Parkinsonian syndromes. Because conventional Parkinson's treatment relies so heavily on pharmaceutical levodopa to restore dopamine levels in the brain, Mucuna is being heavily studied to see if it can produce comparable motor improvements. And while it shows incredible promise, it does have different pharmacokinetic properties than synthetic drugs, which is exactly why it requires expert dosing.
Now, ashwagandha acts through what's called an adaptogenic mechanism. Think of it as a powerful rule of 3 for your brain health. It reduces oxidative stress, it modulates stress hormones, and it supports neuronal survival. Consider the toxic effects of your daily long-term stress, like a particularly brutal week at work. By lowering that chronic cortisol exposure, ashwagandha protects the brain from that exact wear and tear.
In motor conditions like Parkinson's, experimental models even suggest it might help enhance neurite outgrowth. That literally means it helps damaged neurons regenerate their structural branches.
Section 4. The Neuroprotectors.
Enter turmeric and guduchi. These guys basically function as cellular shields. They're widely researched for their ability to provide broad immunomodulatory and antioxidant defense against chronic pain and neurodegeneration. In diseases like Alzheimer's or multiple sclerosis, chronic inflammation is a massive driver of neuronal death. These herbs act systematically to cool off that inflammatory fire and neutralize the reactive oxygen species that slowly damage our brain cells over time. Turmeric, or curcuma longa, achieves this heavy lifting largely through something called NF-kappa B inhibition, which effectively turns down the dial on the brain's inflammatory response. The active compound, curcumin, suppresses the inflammatory cytokines that lead directly to neurodegeneration. It even shows potential in experimental studies to limit the aggregation of amyloid plaques. Those are the proteins heavily associated with Alzheimer's disease, all while helping the brain's immune cells clear out toxic debris.
Section 5. Safe clinical integration.
Look, this is absolutely crucial. Because these herbs are highly biologically active, they can and do interact with conventional drugs. For example, mucuna interacts with prescribed levodopa, and curcumin can interact with blood thinners. This means medical supervision is absolutely non-negotiable. Natural does not automatically mean harmless. If you're taking standard dementia medications alongside bacopa, you could get a compounding cholinergic effect. Or if you take ashwagandha, it might actually alter your thyroid hormone concentrations. The key to integrative medicine is that word right there, integrative. Your neurologist and your complementary care provider must be on the exact same page, using standardized, strictly quality-controlled products. So here is the absolute key takeaway. These herbs are being rigorously investigated as supportive adjuncts to optimize your long-term health. They are not magical, standalone cures meant to replace your disease-modifying therapies. We really have to move past this false dichotomy of Eastern versus Western medicine. The most effective, modern clinical models use pharmaceuticals to halt acute disease progression while simultaneously deploying lifestyle interventions and Ayurvedic botanicals to support systemic resilience, manage those chronic symptoms, and vastly improve the patient's day-to-day quality of life. By combining the laser-sharp diagnostic precision of modern neurology with the holistic, whole-body mechanisms of Ayurveda, we are stepping into a true era of personalized, proactive longevity. Think about it. If our ancestors inherently understood how to nourish the brain's ecosystem centuries before we ever invented MRI machines, we have to ask ourselves, what other ancient remedies are just out there, waiting for modern science to finally unlock their secrets? Thanks for watching.